Good morning, class. I thought I would briefly go over the annotated bibliography assignment, better known as the annotated bibs. This pretty much is your second component to your research paper. Remember, in previous videos, we talked a little bit more about your research paper topic. We talked about discovering how to really do a quick, easy, really less than 30-minute research paper proposal, which that's going to be due before the annotated bibs. The annotated bibs are pretty much going to take you throughout a good bit of the rest of this month, meaning after you turn in your research paper proposal next week, you want to take the next few weeks and really gather up all 6 of your scholarly sources. Your 2 book sources, your 2 journal articles, and your 2 websites. Because again, the key word here is research. You need to include research in your research paper. Otherwise, you're not really writing a research paper and not really following the instructions. So you will need to go, when you start collecting these sources, and 4 of them, right, your 2 scholarly books and your 2 scholarly journal articles really need to come from a library source, meaning either it's a college library or it's a public library. Your 2 websites can come pretty much anywhere offline, but you want to be careful and pick sites that are credible in nature. And if you watch some of the videos that Lorna went over as it relates to that virtual, or if you attended a in-person library orientation, she talks about the CRAT test and really how you can apply that to any source that you find. But you really need to have those 6 sources. Once you get them, you probably want to read through them multiple times. You want to read through them thoroughly. You want to take notes. You want to highlight quotations and passages and that type of stuff that you want to lift out and actually use when you start drafting and finalizing your research paper. Because those quotations, or if you plan on paraphrasing or summarizing some of this stuff, is where, that's your meat and potatoes as it relates to your research. That stuff is going to back up your claims, your thesis statement, that type stuff. And in the coming weeks, I will upload some stuff about how to go about quoting, paraphrasing, and summarizing so you avoid the whole plagiarism issue. Again, some folks in the past, even this semester, have had to give zeros on essays because they plagiarized the paper. So if you remember, going back to, it's stated in the college handbook, but it's also been in the syllabus since the first week. The first offense to plagiarism is a 0 on the assignment automatically, no questions asked. Because every time that you upload your paper, you're sending it through a plagiarism program called SafeAssign and/or Turnitin. Those programs generally are spot on about 99% of the time. So that's why I've always told you that after you upload your paper, you might want to go back within an hour or so and look at those percentages, because the closer to 100 that you are with those percentages with the SafeAssign or the Turnitin means that you plagiarized the paper. You want to try to have a paper that's between 0 and 10. That is basically saying that your thoughts on paper are original and your own. Now, I do realize, being that this is a research paper and you're going to have at least, 6 sources, quotations, paraphrasing, documentation properly, that type stuff throughout, it's going to flag some of that stuff. That's when I come in and see if I can, make that percentage decrease. If I can lower your percentage, let's say you turn in the research paper and it's flagged 40%. Well, that's not great because it's getting closer to 100. But if I can go in there and take that 40% and bring it down in between the 0 and 10, then you're good. Because chances are, if you documented your sources on the works cited page and in parenthetical in text citation, then you should be good. It's going to highlight those quotes. It's going to highlight certain words and that type of stuff that you can basically find in any book or any website. The problem is if you turn in a paper and let's say it's 60%, and the only thing I can do is drop that 60 to a 45, then there's something wrong. And it's usually you copied and paste from a website and you didn't properly cite it correctly, or you didn't include the works cited page. And, you know, the way our policy is, it doesn't matter whether you did it intentionally or, you know, unintentionally. There's no gray area. Cheating is cheating, plagiarism is plagiarism. So pretty much prior to taking this class, you've had an English class at some point, definitely throughout, you know, your 3 or 4 years of high school. They probably talked about plagiarism when you were doing a research element or a research paper in those classes. So plagiarism really doesn't change, just like cheating doesn't change as it relates to what it is. So what I would recommend there, you know, when you start drafting your research paper, if you have issues about citations, how to quote, how to paraphrase, even though we're going to talk about those in the coming weeks, you need to let Smart Thinking and I know as soon as possible, because you don't want to turn in your paper and that thing flags red all throughout your paper, especially 6 to 8 pages. And, you know, if there's a big chunk and I can see that you're getting it off of XYZ website, then that's it. I'm going to just stop, right? There's no use for me grading, you know, 5 or 6 more pages because you got a big chunk on page 2 that's plagiarized. Well, that's an automatic 0. I'm not even going to read the rest of it. So just be careful with that. I'm here to help. Smart Thinking is, you know, free and there to help. You're going to know whether you need help with this particular project soon enough. And you should just go ahead and admit, hey, I need help. And we need to take the steps to sort of resolve what you need help on. The problem is when you wait to the last minute to do some of this stuff, you know, I have 4 other classes that are doing some sort of research project. At that point, when the thing is going to be due in, you know, 48 hours or 24 hours or 6 hours or whatever the case may be, you know, you had the whole month of November to get help on the paper, but you wait until 2 days before it's due. It just really doesn't make any sense, especially if you care about your grade. So don't be shy to reach out to get help. That's what I'm here to do. Okay, so in a minute, we're going to talk a little bit more about what the annotated bib assignment entails. It's a little bit more specific, detail-oriented assignment where most people, if they follow the instructions, it's pretty much like anything in life, though. If you follow instructions, you should do fairly well on these assignments. But if you sort of go rogue and do your own thing, then you may not get the grade that you desire or wanted. So if you sort of watch this video and look what I'm fixing to show you how to set yours up, then it should be, I hope, take a lot of the guesswork out of how to approach the annotated bibs. Because we go from the research paper proposal being sort of the easiest assignment we do all semester to something that's a little bit more, like I said, specific, technical, and could be one of the more difficult assignments to do if you just don't know what you're doing. So the annotated bib is basically a collection of the 6 sources that you plan on using throughout your research paper. What I've been usually telling my in-person class, even though I say find 6, overall and at the beginning, you probably want to overreach that a little bit. You want to try to find 12 sources. Of the 12, you want to narrow it down to your 6 best. It's better to have a little bit extra than to come up shorthanded and have a lot less, because that's telling me a couple things. That's telling me either you're not going out and doing the, hitting the payment, going to the library, going to, online with Galileo or the databases. You're not really taking the project seriously, or something with your time management skills is just not up to par with this particular project, or you just picked a really crappy research paper topic because you can't find anything on it. So after you go out, and what I say with that is, you're just sort of finding 12 sources. So what does that mean? Well, again, that would be like you will find double what you need to find originally. So instead of, like I said, the 2 books, the 2 journal articles, the 2 websites, add 2 more to those, right? So now it'd be more like 4 books, 4 journal articles, and 4 websites. And the reason for that, again, is as you read through those and take your notes and see really what you have there that's going to offer you, I hope, good information that you can provide in your research paper, you are going to narrow down the 6 best that you want to use. So you may find 6 that are just worthless, and you don't want to use those out of those 12. So that's how you're going to narrow this down. So it's always good to probably have a little bit more than have a little bit less. That's one thing that you want to sort of keep in mind. The next thing, if you look at the particular assignment sheet, which should be in this week's folder, if not, it'd definitely be in next week's folder. It gives you 4 questions. These are 4 different questions than your proposal. So keep that in mind. Your proposal has its own set of 4 questions. The annotated bib has its own set of 4 different questions. Each one of those 4 questions, as you read your 6 sources, you're asking those questions for those sources. So the questions are going to stay the same. Your answers are going to be different because obviously you're using 6 different sources. And I'll show you what I mean by that. I'll give you a template here to sort of follow. That should be easy. Depending on your class, right, this is pretty much the annotated bib assignment is going to be due the week that we come back from spring break. Now, for my online course, it's going to be due on Tuesday, November 30th. Some of my in-person classes, I think one is December 1st, and I have to check to see what the other one is, but it's basically going to be that week that we come back for Thanksgiving break. So again, if you don't want to do a lot of work for me over Thanksgiving break, then I would recommend that you sort of knock these things out as quickly as you can. I mean, obviously you still have the research paper to draft and finalize, but this is sort of the nitty gritty. This is the stuff that you're going to actually have to take your own time to do. You're going to have to allot some reading time, right? Because you really need to go through your sources. You're going to need to be able to answer these 4 questions. And the way these 4 questions are styled will let me know if you're really picking great sources and if you're really taking the time to read through them thoroughly. And I will show you what I mean here momentarily. So just keep in mind the deadline, right? It's basically that week that we come back from Thanksgiving break, this thing is going to be due. The Dropbox will probably be open for it earlier, so you can turn it in earlier if you want to do that, so you can continue to work and draft on your research paper, because a lot of this stuff is sort of layers. You need one to sort of do the other. But that doesn't mean that you can't work ahead. You can with this particular project. So let me go ahead and share what I'm getting at here. All right, so you should see this, and this is basically my English 1101 online assignment sheet for the annotated bib. These are the 4 questions I was talking about. right? What are the main arguments, points, and topics covered in this particular source? Is this particular source, as it relates to its information about your topic, objective or biased? Is the information reliable? How can you use this particular source in your research paper? How is the particular source helpful to you? How has this particular source changed how you think about your topic now? So 4 questions that, if you really read your 6 sources thoroughly and take notes on those, annotate those, keyword there is annotate, you should be able to answer these 4 questions with ease. I give you sort of a Model A annotated bib example from a former student. I provide guidance and, things to follow in the margins. Again, this particular annotated bib is a little bit lengthy, but it's good information because it gives you everything that you need. There's really 2 parts to your annotated bib. One is going to be your citation. It's always going to come before your annotated paragraph and then your paragraph. And you build your paragraph or create your paragraph out of these 4 questions. So, roughly 1 to 2 sentences per question should be suffice. So you're looking at possibly a 4 to 8 sentence paragraph per source. So just keep that in mind. Now, what I'm going to show you is what I did here earlier today. And I'm going to bring this over here. And this time, I'm focusing on a different topic than what I did in my video in the proposal, which that's fine. I'm showing you different topics because you can do these with pretty much any topic you choose, as long as you can find the 6 sources that you need. So my particular research paper or topic in this case, as it relates to the annotated bib, is opioid overdose in the United States. So this is sort of what I did. And this will make sense if you follow the video through, because I'm going to show you how you can create, based on what you see on this screen, what you seen here earlier. I'm going to give you the citation and I'm going to give you the paragraph, and I'm going to show you how you can all do that using an online works cited generator. So going back to my little format here, what I did was I put web source 1, put web source 2 because you need 2 scholarly web sources. I put journal article 1, journal article 2 because you need 2 scholarly journal articles, which you can find from the library, Galileo and its databases. And then I put book source 1 and book source 2, which again you can find from Galileo or your library. So going back, because I'm going to start in order here. If you notice, what I did was I went to that assignment sheet that originally had those 4 questions, right? These 4, I highlighted those, I copied and pasted into another Word document, and I put citation, and then I put these 4 questions. As you can tell, it's the same 4 questions for each one of my 6 sources here. The only difference is my answers. So keeping that in mind, I gave myself enough room and I put, I read this source. So to show you the source, let me see if I can get back out of here. This was one of my sources, one of my web sources. I read through this. Now, some of the web sources will be lengthy, some will be short. Expect that your journal articles, especially if they're scholarly in nature, and book chapters, you probably want to find chapter books that deal with your topic, will probably be 10 plus pages. So expect to have a good bit of reading to do while you're doing your research here for your research paper. So that was my first web source. And after I read that and sort of took my own notes on my own sheet of paper, I went through and then started answering these questions. What are the main arguments, points, topics covered in the particular source? As you can tell, this is my answer. Now, I included in some of mine quotations from the actual source. You could do that if you feel comfortable about quoting at this point, if you're trying to work ahead. You don't necessarily have to. The advantages of quoting in the particular annotated bib is that if you find quotes that you really want to sort of use in the actual research paper, you can sort of include it in your answers to your annotated bib. That way, if you go ahead and do the proper in-text citation, you can sort of go back and kind of copy and paste quotes and sort of, like a puzzle piece to your research paper a little bit. You don't have to, because some students, what they try to do is they try to turn this particular annotated bib assignment into their research paper, and they're two different assignments. They're covering the same topic, but you're not basically, reordering your paragraphs around in your annotated bib, opening up another Word document and copying and pasting and say, oh, I'm done, I have my research paper. No, the annotated bib is basically you going through evaluating your sources to make sure you're picking the right 6 sources for your paper. So as you can tell, I did that. Number 2, here's my answer. Number 3, here's my answer. And number 4, here's my answer. Again, depending on, the length, it could be 1 sentence, it could be, 2 sentences, it could be a little bit lengthier, depending on how much you want to have to say. I would try to keep it, within 1 to 2 sentences if possible to make your life a lot easier. And that way you're not getting burned out before you actually start drafting the paper. Because when you say too much in your annotated bib, sometimes you run the risk of basically saying the information that you want to really say in your research paper in this particular project, and it just makes it sort of overkill in a lot of ways. Web source number 2. I'll show you that one. So that's my first web source. This is my second. All right, this one is fairly lengthy. It's nearly 24 pages, but a lot of it, as you can tell, is graphs, figures, and charts and stats. So going back, I have, again, my same 4 questions. My answers are different because I'm using a different web source at this point. My answer, my answer, my answer, so on and so forth. And I do that with my journal article. My first journal article, as you can tell here. Again, I'll show you that. So at this point, you have seen my first 2 sources. Here's my third source. This is my third source. Again, I'm using those same 4 questions. I'm providing my answers to those 4 questions based on this particular journal article. My journal article 2, which is my 4th source overall, is right here. And again, it all goes back and it relates to what I was talking about in my, what would have been my proposal on this particular topic. In this case, it's the opioid overdose in the United States. So this is my second journal article. Again, it's fairly lengthy. I've read through this. The other thing that you might want to sort of pay attention to when you're looking at journal articles and book chapters is look at the references or works cited page that those particular authors are using. If it's a really well-written, long article, chances are they're going to have a lot of sources here. If you have a journal article that's 30 pages and they only quote twice and there's only 2 references, then I probably wouldn't use that because it's probably not really reputable. Same thing with books. With web sources, sometimes that's going to be kind of hard to, decide whether are they using sources or not. Again, if you're using .edu, .org, or .gov sites, chances are they're going to be, reputable experts are going to be weighed in the analysis of that particular source. So obviously, if you watch the library orientation video, you really don't want to use Wikipedia. Because Wikipedia is not really one of those reliable sources, because anybody that knows how to log in and type, from a 3-year-old to a 96-year-old, could go in there at any point, day and night, and change stuff up. And you don't really know what their credentials are because they don't list them. So I usually kind of cringe when I see folks that use Wikipedia as a research source for the research paper. And I usually count off for that, because I know that that particular source is probably not really that reputable to their topic. Now, you can use Wikipedia to get a good understanding of your topic. You can use some of the references, because again, if it's a well-written Wikipedia article, they're going to have, footnotes, works cited references that they have hyperlinks to. And usually those hyperlinks will take you to scholarly journal articles and books. You can piggyback off that way. But just to use a Wikipedia article over opioids wouldn't be in my best interest when I'm writing this paper. Okay. So at this point, you've seen 4 of my sources: 2 scholarly journal articles and 2 scholarly websites. The books, what I did here, I didn't put the title per se, but I'm going to show you the reason why I put the ISBN number, because when we go to the works cited generator and create that citation, it's going to be a little bit more helpful than just putting the title and stuff. So what I'm going to do is search, and it comes up with that particular, this is the book I used. And I read through this to be able to answer, these 4 questions. And then we have my last book source, which is basically my 6th source as it relates to the research. And I did the same here. And this was the other book that I read to be able to answer those 4 questions. Now, what to do after that? Well, this is what I would suggest that you do. Once you have everything sort of set up this way, and again, you can approach this in many different ways. This is just one way that I know that has worked for students in the past, that works well for me. I use it when I'm doing research and that type of stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to exit out of this for a minute, and I'm going to bring over a works cited generator. And I basically, what I did here was I went to Google and typed in works cited generator. You can find this one. It's usually on that first page if you want to use this one. There's EasyBib, there's Citation Machine. There's a lot of them that you can use. But I picked this one just because it's a little different than what I've used before. And I just wanted to sort of play around with it. So going back, let's just go back to maybe the first part of this. Well, okay. So that's what I did. Works cited generator. You see you have Citation Machine. I went to the third one. It's going to give you, are you trying to create a website citation, a book citation, or journal article citation? In this case, I'm trying to do the website at this point. And what I want to do is I'm going to go back momentarily, and I'm going to use this because this is the website for my first source. And I'm going to put this in there. And then I'm going to go ahead and search for it. And what it should do is find it. There it is. That's it. So I'm going to click on that. And basically, as you can tell, it sort of filled in the blanks for me for the most part. So what you're going to have to kind of keep in mind, because it's telling you what to sort of capitalize. So you want to make sure your title is capitalized. It gives the website again, gives the website name. The author, though, we're going to have to probably go back to that particular website because there was an author. So let me do that real quick. So I'm going to move this around. And as you can tell, the author here is Andy Miller. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to go back and erase what they originally had. And I'm going to show you that here momentarily. It's not the current as the author, it's Andy Miller. So I'm going to bring that over here. And then the other thing that it's looking for is a publisher, that it didn't find a publisher there. So I'm going to have to scroll down. And it's usually going to be down here somewhere. And it looks like it's going to be the current is going to be the publisher here because it's the copyright. So I'm going to put the current there. Scroll around so you can see now. I have the web address. It's a web page. I have the proper capitalization for the actual title of that article. I have the URL. I have the website name. I have the actual correct author, first and last. I have the publication date. I have the publisher. And now where it says add annotation. This is where you're going to sort of put those sentence answers into paragraph form. And what I mean by that is I'm going to minimize this again. I'm going back to that original document that had those answers. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to get rid of this. Just get rid of your questions. Keep your answers. Because in a lot of ways, what we're going to do is back things up to create that particular paragraph. And we're going to style it the way we need it styled. As you can tell, answer 1, answer 2, answer 3, answer 4. So I'm going to pull everything back. And I'm keeping it in the same order as I answered those questions. Now I'm going to get rid of this ANS, which is my answers. And I'm going to back number 2, the answer to number 2, into number 1. I'm back my answer for number 3 into number 2 to sort of formate that paragraph. And the same thing for my last one. So as you can tell, my answers, and I'm going to zoom out a little bit, make my paragraph. So I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to bring back my works cited generator, and where it says add annotation, I'm going to click that, and I'm basically just going to copy and paste my paragraph. Now you may have to change some of the format here a little bit to make it work for you, and we're probably going to have to do it again. But then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hit create source or cite source. And as you can tell, I have my citation above my paragraph. So the next thing I'm going to do that for my second one. Going back, I'm getting the website. Going back to my citation machine, I'm going to hit the website here for this. I'll put that in there. This one, it's saying it can't really be found, so let's see if there's another way we can do this. Sometimes this happens. We may have to come back and do that one manually. So let me go back. We'll come back and do that one manually here in a minute. I'll show you how to do that. I'm going to go ahead and do my first journal article for the sake of time here. And basically, I found this off of a database online. So here it is. I'm going to go ahead and click that. It pretty much does everything for me. The publisher, again, we're probably going to have to go back. There's a lot of back into, as you can tell here. And for that part, I kind of apologize, but that's how research is. You're going to be doing a lot of back and forth. We got to look for a publisher. And again, you're probably going to have to maybe scroll down to the very end of the page. You could find it maybe at the beginning of the page, but we're going to scroll down. Let's see, copyright stuff. It's probably going to be, it's right here with this copyright, American Medical Association. So I'm going to copy that. Again, I'm bringing this over. I'm putting it where it says publisher. And again, what I'm going to do is repeat what I did for my first source. Is I'm going to get my answers to form my paragraph. So again, what I'm doing here is I'm just getting rid of the question, keeping my answers. Because if you do it in order, you're going to have everything in order for you. So that it sort of takes out that guesswork of what should come first. And then sort of, you know, bring everything back. Getting rid of this ANS stuff. And really, after you do a couple of these, it really becomes repetitive. You're sort of doing the same thing. It's just different sources with different answers at this point. So I'm going to copy this. Check to see if there's any grammar and stuff that you need to do. You can always go back and proofread this at the very end. Some folks like to do the grammar and stuff early on. All right, I'm going to go ahead and hit Cite Source. And as you can tell, too, since I have two sources, right, one of my web sources and one of my journal articles, if you do it all at once like I'm doing here, the program will put the stuff in alphabetical order by author's last name for you. So that I take out that guesswork, what should come first, is it in the right order or not? So I'm going to go back. And I'm going to do Journal Article 2 the same way. So website here in this case, because I got it off of a online database. There's the article. Click on that. Provided everything for me. It needs a website title in this case. So we may need to find a website title, which that's going to be easy enough. Just plug it back in and try to find it. It looks like the website title is going to be this PLOS1. So I'm going to put that in here just as it looks. And we need a publisher too. So again, we may have to scroll down to the very end to find that copyright date. It looks like it's going to be this PLOS. I'm going to put that in there again, bring this over so I can show you. Everything is there. I'm going to add this citation here momentarily. So what I'm going to do is go back to my template. Just like I did for the last two, I'm going to get rid of these questions and just keep my answers. Make sure they stay in the same order. Get rid of this ANS stuff. And then just back 2 into 1. 3 into 1 and 2. And then my last one into the first 3. Have my paragraph. I'll go ahead and copy and paste this. Bring my citation machine back over, add the annotation, copy and paste that in there, make sure, looks like everything's good. I'm going to cite the source. As you can tell, that's my third one. Again, alphabetical order, G, then M, and then U. I'm going to go back, and now the tricky part is going to be with the books. Here's my first book source. I'm going to use that ISBN number, and I'm going to see if this is going to work. We may have to sort of manually do that too. But since this is a book, I'm going to hit book, and I'm going to put this number in, and I'm going to search for it. And it really gives me 2. I'm going to go with the first. Now, if you're using particular chapters, which again, that's what you probably want to do, you want to click on the chapter, and then you would probably want to, put the title of the chapter. For time purposes, I'm going to put the entire book. And we may have to go find the place of publication. So again, I'm going to put that ISBN number in my Google search. I'm going to pick up Amazon because that's originally where I found it. And then if you scroll down, you're going to find some information about it. The publisher is Johns Hopkins University Press. So I'm going to just copy that part of it and put it back into the place of publication where it's looking. So it looks like that. I'm going to go back to my template. I'm going to get rid of my questions and just keep my answers again, just like we did for the last 3. If you go in order, everything is going to be in order for you. So you won't have to, like I said, there's no guesswork about, well, what sentence should come first or whatever that case may be. Because if you're doing it like I'm doing it here, everything is in order for you. It's just sort of backing up and piecing it back together. Sort of like Humpty Dumpty here. You got a research dump up, here that you're trying to piece back together. So I'm just backing everything back up to form my particular paragraph. Because another way you can look at it, the first sentence is the answer to question 1. The second sentence is the answer to question 2. The third sentence is the answer to my question 3. And then, of course, this fourth sentence is going to be the answer to my question 4. So I'm going to highlight this again. Go back to my trusty works cited generator. Hit add annotation. Everything looks pretty good there. I'm going to go ahead and hit the cite source. And as you can tell, it has 4 of my sources. And then I'm going to go back and do my last book. We're probably going to have to find the same stuff like we did with the earlier book, but we'll see if it does it a little bit better. Copy and paste that ISBN number. I'm going to hit the first one. Everything looks pretty good here. Again, we're looking for a place of publication. So again, I'm going to put my ISBN number into Google. Again, I found it at Amazon. I'm going to scroll down to see publisher, All Points Books. I'm copying and pasting that into the place of publication. So it looks like this. Then I'm going to go back to my template and basically repeat the same stuff I've been doing. Getting rid of the question and keeping the answers in order. Get that annotated paragraph. Now, there's a couple ways you can go about doing this. Like I said, this is what I found to really work the easiest for me and for most of my students. If you have a quicker, easier way, feel free to use that, as long as it gets the results that you want. In this case, picking 6 great sources and ultimately the grade that you want. So again, there's my paragraph. Copy and paste that. Make sure there's a period there. Bring this back over. It adds annotation. Copy and paste in there. Looks like everything's good. Cite the source. Okay. As you can tell, I have the 5 sources. The one that we may have to go back, and I think this one, it may want me to create an account. So I may just go ahead and show you how it looks with 5 sources. The 6th source, like I said, basically you have to go in and manually include that. I will see if it'll let me do it. Yeah, I may have to do that. So let's go through manually in case you run into the same situation, which that's usually the frustrating part. So I'm going back to my second web source, and it's more or less a PDF file. So what I'm going to have to do is probably bring up the original source, because it's going to want that it's going to want information from that. So if you remember, we tried it earlier and it didn't work. So what I want to do then is I'm going to supply this stuff. I'm basically going to have to type this stuff in, and that's going to be a little bit time consuming, but I can copy this. This is basically the title. This is my web address, the URL that it's going to ask for. Didn't really have a website per se, because I found it as a PDF. But what I may do, actually, this is probably the title, honestly. I may use this part of it as the website. And again, if you have issues, just send me the link, and I'll see if I can help make that part a little easier in case you're having to do the same stuff I'm doing here. Well, I'm gonna leave it that way. You don't really have an author. It's the Georgia Department of Public Health. So I'm going to put it as a organization. I'm going to show you how that looks here in a minute. It's tricky doing sometimes with these PDFs. The next thing that's asking is for a publication date, and I don't think it really gives one. So I may go by the year. And the year here is 2016, so that's the only thing I can put. You don't want to make stuff up. So if you can't find it, like I said, email me. I see if I can locate it for you. If if I can't find it, I sort of guide you to what you need to put in there. Publisher, again, would be the Georgia Department of Public Health. I'll show you how that looks. And I'm going to put the date that I accessed it, which was today. So I'm going to scroll this back over to show you what I did. So basically, I had to go back to that document and copy and paste, the title. I had to include the website address, the URL, the name. I listed it as a organization since we don't really know who wrote it as it relates to was it two people? Was it one person? Was it a group of people? We couldn't find the month and the date for publication, so I had to go by the year. The publisher was, again, the Georgia Department of Public Health, and then I put today was when I basically read the article. And what I want to do then is go back to my template and get rid of these questions, keep my answers in order. And get ready to copy and paste this to the text box for my annotation. Go back here, add citation or annotation, cite the source, and there I have it. I have all 6 sources. They're all in alphabetical order and the way they need to be. Now, what I want to do is I'm going to export this to Word. It's going to download it. It's going to give me 2 pages. So this is what I want to do. My first page, I'm getting rid of all this stuff. Let's see, what is it doing? All right. I'm going to back up. All right, so you need to put your header like you would originally. And I'm just going to put the date that this thing is due. My title. Annotated Bibliography. Make sure that you have your last name and your page number. Get rid of the works cited. And then I'm bringing everything back. Now, I've used this Scribbler. That logo is going to be there. I guess you can kind of delete it. Let's see if it'll let me delete it. Yeah. But as you can tell, I have my header, I have my last name and page number in each one of my pages. All 6 of my sources are in the correct alphabetical order by author's last name. I have my citation of the source, and then I have my paragraph for that particular source. And as you can tell, with my length and my 6 sources, it basically gave me 3 full pages. Or if you're looking at word count, nearly 900 words. And, you know, we did that pretty much less than about an hour. Now, obviously, it took me an hour or 2 to read some of my sources. So if you look at it that way, answering the questions, getting the sources, using the works cited generator, and getting everything sort of in order, you'd still want to go back and proofread, right? I sort of just did this kind of quickly, so I'm sure I'd have to go back and proofread and spell check and all that stuff. But again, once you get to this part, you could start sending me drafts, and we can eliminate some of those surface errors, you know, comma splicers, run-ons, and that type stuff. But I think overall, because I started doing some of the research and stuff, it's 10:30. I started reading this stuff about 8 o'clock. So, you know, I've been doing this quite a long time. So I kind of know how to go about answering this stuff. So I would say 3 hours for me. And sorry about that. I had to empty the trash. I would say probably 3 hours for me. But if this is your first time doing this, if you are a slow typer, slow reader, that type stuff, probably double that. Maybe 6, maybe a little bit longer, depending on how you go about doing it. But it's one of those, if you get all your sources in order and you read through them and you take your notes and that type stuff on it, you could probably do this assignment, you know, typing, getting everything in order, download it into your Microsoft Word like I did. The spell and proofreading on your part, you could probably do this in at least a day, maybe less. But it all just goes, I mean, it really just boils down to how fast you can get your sources, how fast can you read through them and start taking your notes and be able to answer those questions. You will have pretty much, you could start this now, right? If you feel pretty confident about where you are with your research paper proposal, you don't have to wait the next week to really start this. You can go out and start collecting, you know, really easily, especially if you have your research paper topic chosen. You can start going to your library and start picking up some of your sources. I'm giving everybody until, like I said, the week that we come back from Thanksgiving break to really finalize the annotated bib component of your research paper. That way, to give you enough time to really read through your stuff, to make sure you're picking the 6 best sources, to take notes, to highlight the quotations. The other thing is, if you use if you use a works cited generator to sort of help you, this is how you can turn your annotated bib into a really quick works cited page. So I will show you how to do that right now. So in a lot of ways, when you get done with your annotated bib, you will also have your very last page for your research paper, because if you use all 6 of these sources in your paper, which you should, everything is already in order. So how to do that? Well, I get rid of my original title here and put works cited, because you're using more than one source. I get rid of this, and then I'm going to get rid of my paragraph, because the works cited page just wants the citation. Everything's sort of in order still for you if you go about doing it this way. So as you can tell, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You would attach this. Let's say you end on page 7 of your research paper. Your works cited page will have to start on another page. That'll be page 8. If you end on page 6, your works cited page would be page 7. If you end on page 8, your works cited page would be page 9. So the numbers up here would be different. But that's how you would turn your works cited or your annotated bib into a quick works cited page. And that's the annotated bib pretty much in a nutshell. Again, it can be a little daunting. It is specific and technical, but if you sort of go through and follow what I laid out here with my particular template and use a works cited generator of your choice, the process of creating your annotated bib and completing this project in a timely manner where you can send multiple drafts to me in Smart Thinking will be, cut in half. There will be really no guesswork if you sort of go by and follow these guidance. All right. With that in mind, we will go ahead and end it. I hope everybody has a great rest of the week. I hope everybody has a really great week next week. And again, don't be shy. Please reach out if you need help. I will talk to you soon.